Welcome to Roundhouse Roulette, a Walker, Texas Ranger podcast. Each week we recap and review one of the 200 existing Walker, Texas Ranger episodes randomly selected by Roundhouse Roulette. I'm Evan Dalton here with my brother Adam and our fellow Walker connoisseur, Mr. Bob Leahy. What's new, guys?
Hello.
Not much, dude. What's going on?
I don't know. It feels like forever since we last did this.
It's been too long.
It was.
Well, we'll see if we've forgotten how to do everything. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us as we revisit Chuck Norris's CBS Hold the BS TV action series. Today we're going to recap and review Season 6, Episode 23, Circle of Life, where a parolee's attempt to go straight is jeopardized by a gang of criminals in desperate need of his safe-cracking skills. But before we strap on our court-ordered ankle monitors, join us as we pull up a bar stool at CD's Bar and Grill. Fancy meeting you guys here. What's shaking?
Not much, man. Just living the Vida Loca.
Well, this week, CD has chosen to serve us up a Doppelganger Double IPA from Treehouse Brewing Company in Charlton, Massachusetts.
Whew. Double.
As described in the Bar and Grill Summer Draft menu, quote, the imperial version of Treehouse's alter ego New England IPA, this dry hop double IPA is simply a juicy and dank citrus bomb.
Ooh, dank. So dank.
Oh, crunchy, bro.
Are you guys ready to drop a bomb?
Oh, yeah.
I'm a little frightened by the description of dank, but let's give it a shot. Some good Foley art going on, guys. You're crushing it.
Man, yeah, in this Foley art, this isn't popped in later. This is actual can crack in action here.
Right.
Yeah.
Real time.
We don't fake anything here. No sound effects.
No.
All the music is played live.
Yeah, we have a band on retainer.
Yeah, we just make them play four measures over and over again.
That's pretty dank.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, man.
I mean, I hear the word dank and I think wet basement. This is not wet basement. It's pretty good.
And this is a double IPA. Usually they're pretty in your face, but this is pretty chill. And I can taste the dankness, and I'm just going to roll with it. I might be here all weekend with a bag of Doritos.
Yeah.
Well, you better buy 2 bags of Doritos because it is called Doppelganger.
Just not Cool Ranch. I'm just not down with that.
Oh, but it would match, though. It would match the can.
Does look like the Cool Ranch.
Yeah, it kind of looks most like a Bud Light can, but I'm pretty sure the people at Treehouse Brewing Company would maybe resent that remark.
They've just sent a cease and desist in real time.
Wait, what happened to my beer? It's gone.
Yeah, Treehouse Brewing Company, of course, is one of the few claims to fame of Charlton, Massachusetts, which is sort of right in the center of Massachusetts.
Yeah, not a whole lot going on out there. But then again, I've only been there to go to the brewery, so.
There's a travel plaza on the Mass Pike, and I remember there's a car dealership there that always says it's always cheaper in Charlton.
They talking about the cars? Or
No idea. Never been. Anywho, this is great banter. Yeah.
I'm just glad that CD's been stocking up the bar with these Treehouse beers. We've just been lucky to sample them. This one was rated like 100 on the Untapped app. There's a lot of beer snobs out there, so take that into account while taking your sips here.
Yeah, and there's always spoilers. There's always people that are like, that's not that good. Its mouthfeel is subpar. Is it? No, it isn't.
Yeah, if we had to rate beers here, I think we'd be in trouble. I mean, especially we can't even come up with a consensus on what a perfect 10 is for Walker, Texas Ranger, so.
Yeah, and let's face it, there are probably way more beer podcasts.
Why don't we move into our mailbag here? And coincidentally, we got correspondence from our bud Mike Rooney, who was a little upset that Bob drank a Treehouse beer on a previous episode because he's stuck in Florida and he can't drink Treehouse beer.
No, he cannot.
I guess apparently their beer, Julius, is named after a fish song. Are they big fish heads over there, Bob?
Wouldn't surprise me, but I wasn't aware of that. I don't know anything about fish.
When you were like over there in normal times, did they wear deodorant?
Yeah, I think so. It's so long ago. That was before times.
All right. Okay. Do you guys see the the marinara picture I have there?
Are you mixing fart powder into your marinara sauce?
Like 6 months ago, I was over at our friend Nate's house. I was feeding his cats. He was out of town. And I found this fart powder I had sitting around, which you're supposed to like mix up with food, right? Tastes like a fart. I was like, you know what? I'm going to bring it over there. And I mixed it in his marinara sauce. And then I sent myself a reminder for 6 months from the time I did it to text him the picture. So I texted it to him with Mike because he and Mike was on the same chain, and I had let Mike know about it. Mike's like, "How was your spaghetti?" Apparently, Nate had that in his refrigerator for years, and it never uses marinara sauce, so he lucked out.
Well, you wasted that fart powder then.
Yeah. Well, it was used.
Right, okay.
But later today, that was a text I told you guys about earlier, but later today, he just texted me. He must be listening to these. Friend of the podcast, Mike, said, "Please tell me you keep the intro credit clock going. It's one of the most interesting aspects of the show." I think we have kind of dropped that as of recent time. I didn't know if people would be interested in it. It is ridiculous, but I guess we'll have to feed that back into the episode. What do you think?
I'm definitely keeping track of it, so...
I mean, we've hired a statistician to work out a proper graph for our website, and at which time that data point will be available on there, Mike. So believe me, don't worry about it. Mike also asked, is that Bob doing the boots to the face sound?
No, it is not.
Okay.
I mean, yes, it is.
Once again, these are real sound effects, so we've got someone getting roundhouse kicked in the face every time we do the boot to the face sound.
I think you actually change the boot you hit yourself in the face with every time too, right, Bob?
Right, it's got to be a fresh boot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's getting pretty expensive. The budget is getting out of hand. But
I mean, one time you did high heels. I was like, wow.
Yeah, it didn't translate well for the audio.
But it hurt like hell.
But it hurt like hell, yeah.
So on Twitter, we actually got a nice little shout-out from our friend, fan of the show, Fart Noise. Fart Noise says, "I just listened to this podcast, and I'm so mad about the puns. That being said, nice rundown on some crucial cinematic history. And this is in response to our Top Dog podcast. To that, I would say, throw us a bone, man."
Nailed it.
All right, there you go. All right. Totally redeemed himself. This is something that happened to me personally this week. My 9 to 5, because let's be honest here, guys, this Walker Texas Ranger podcast is successful, but I can't
immensely successful.
Yeah, I can't make a living off it yet. And, once I do, then maybe I'll share some money with you guys. But
it's like when Yes toured just to pay off Rick Wakeman's keyboards.
Yeah.
The money we get all goes to Bob's boot budget.
Yeah, it's stiletto collection.
We can't skimp out on those boots.
So my 9 to 5 is I work at Nashville Recording Supply. And I got an email from some rando saying, "Hey, did you know that NashvilleRecordings.com is for sale?" And I'm like, oh my gosh, another spam email. But the guy had his whole contact information in the footer. And I'm like, all right, let me check out his Twitter. And I see he's at BusyFather on Twitter. And he's a domain researcher, photographer, and martial artist.
Sweet.
Right. So naturally, I wrote him back. I said, "Appreciate the info, Ruben. I checked out our budget, and we have $10 that we could reallocate and invest in the domain. I'm guessing that will not be enough. Also, I see you are a martial artist. Are you a fan of Chuck Norris by any chance?" And he wrote back, "It's worth more than $10. I am a martial artist, and I have only seen one movie by Chuck Norris with Bruce Lee. I heard a lot about the legend, though." So then I wrote him back again. "I only ask as I recently started a podcast on Walker Texas Ranger if you are interested." And I sent him a link to our website.
You reeled this guy in?
Yeah.
This guy, he takes...
He's really nice, actually, the way he responds and everything.
Yeah, he takes domains incredibly seriously. Wow. He eats, sleeps, and breathes domain names.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't offer you an opportunity to optimize the Roundhouse Roulette webpage.
I know.
domain.
Maybe we should see if there's some alternate titles for the Roundhouse Roulette, because that's where all the really money comes from. But he said, your site looks very interesting. First, I need to watch Walker, Texas Ranger, and then listen to your podcast.
Oh, man. So, yeah, you're not going to hear from him for months. He's going to fall down that wormhole pretty hard.
Well, that's good. It's, I just want to give a shout out to Ruben and thank him for trying to help me with my search engine optimization. And when I'm ready, I'm definitely going to hit him up for a domain.
He just hoards them and then extorts people into paying for them. Is that what they do?
I'm just glad he didn't buy mine when it accidentally lapsed. I mean, can you imagine if he swooped in and stole deathtofootball.com?
That's
Actually,
true.
maybe you know
screwed.
what? Maybe I should say, hey, man, I've got this domain. I'll give you a share of it if you can go sell it for me.
Just turn it around on him, try to sell him domains.
Yeah. Well, I already turned it around on him once, but what if I did it twice? For those who don't know, the CW TV network is rebooting Walker, Texas Ranger with Jared Padalecki playing the role of Walker. And this week, news has been pretty slow because pretty much during COVID-19, production is slowed. But there's a lot of fanboys and girls of this guy. And this week, Cinema Blend had some pretty big news. You want to fill us in?
So, yeah, we got some news here. Headlines, whoa. Jared Padalecki is rocking a proper Chuck Norris beard for Walker, Texas Ranger reboot.
Shall we be the judge of that?
I checked it out. It's pretty legit. One of the things you notice about Chuck Norris's beard is how ridiculously dense his beard hairs are.
Yeah.
It's like a completely homogeneous layer of fur across the lower half of his face, or the lower third of his face.
And it's uniform. It's all the same way.
It's like if someone did a close-up of, felt. That's what it looks like.
I think this Jared Padalecki looks... Well, first of all, it looks like a mug shot of this guy.
Yeah, we did hear that he was recently arrested. So I wonder if that's what this is.
It's a pretty positive spin on his mugshot from his arrest the other night, but yeah, I mean, that looks a little too long. I think he needs to reel it in a little bit.
Hey, it's a reboot. We've covered this. It's not it's not in the same world or universe as the Walkerverse. So they're just kind of going with it. We're going to put this up in our social media accounts here, and we'll let you guys be the judge of it. Let us know. Is Jared Padalecki doing his best, living in Chuck Norris's 5 o'clock shadow? Well, we best not keep our parole officer waiting. If you're watching along at home and don't want any spoilers, hit pause and watch Season 6, Episode 23, Circle of Life, and come back to us. Welcome back. I hope you guys didn't actually watch The Lion King, and you actually watched Circle of Life, which is a Walker, Texas Ranger episode. This episode originally aired on May 2nd, 1998, and begins with our favorite Texas Ranger posse somehow cutting the line at the grand opening of the Casa Lopez Mexican restaurant.
They were literally the first table being served, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, this is like a rando Mexican restaurant in a strip mall, we assume somewhere near Dallas. Mm-hmm. And CD, Alex, Walker, and Trevette are sitting at a table, and there are dozens of people outside waiting for a table in this grand opening. Yeah, of course, this is Casa Lopez, and you see the name Lopez, and you know that we're gonna meet another old friend.
Well, I didn't realize that we were going to meet them so soon because they're inside the restaurant. They're about to serve the table, and they serve Walker. The camera shifts as the plate goes to Walker, and you're like, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting Walker to be eating before all these poor people waiting outside to get into this grand opening. But, okay, here we go.
They could have gotten in line 6:30 in the morning. We don't know.
They just flashed the badge.
Out.
You kidding me? They flashed that badge and they were in.
Oh, yeah.
Or they are old friends that we'll never see again, and that's more likely.
Hashtag old friends.
Yeah.
Yes.
Total hashtag old friends here.
And this is a trope in Walker where Walker is friends with somebody and acts in a way as if they're really good friends, and we never see him again after the episode.
I don't remember much about the TV show Touched by an Angel, but I assume the whole premise of the show was each episode, like some group in need or some person in need is touched by an angel and their life is forever changed. I think you could probably call Walker, Texas Ranger Touched by Walker for a lot of these episodes because he just sort of makes this cameo in people's lives and their lives are forever changed. And it's usually his second trip into their lives, and we only see the second one.
Yeah, I think Michael Jackson tried to do a show like that, but they weren't having it.
We'll edit that one out. So yeah, we meet these old friends. It's Marta and Tomas Lopez. She's a single mom trying to make ends meet. You know, she definitely turns out a legit menu of Mexican food that kind of makes everyone think that, hey, you know, you could best CD here.
Yeah, and he was like, well, I'll be damned, but I think my menu can hold up with the best of them, no offense.
Which, as far as we can tell, his menu consists of chili and then all of the beers that he's been sending us, but that's about it.
Dude, right. Man. Yeah, I mean, he's picked some pretty good beers, so he may be right, but that was kind of rude of him to say that. Typical CD, you know. He's an old guy. He can get away with it.
I will say, throughout this whole scene, they just keep showing, like, heaping plates of Mexican food. Mm-hmm. And throughout this whole COVID thing, we've not really been doing takeout or anything or like, dining in restaurants. And one of the things I miss the most is Mexican food, so this just made me feel really bad.
Yeah, but how about the banter at the table here?
Yeah, so Trevette, there was, like, some pepper on the table or something, like a jalapeno or habanero. Was that what it was?
It looked like a jalapeno, but I think they called it out as something specific that probably doesn't exist.
You're absolutely right, Bob. Adam is correct in that he picks up a jalapeno, which is, you know, spicy. And they're like, no, you don't want to eat that. That's a fiery habanero from Sonora. and he pops it in his mouth, which it's clearly a jalapeno, not a habanero. But anyways, he's the butt of the joke again, unfortunately.
Yeah, and of course, he's like, oh, I like hot stuff, and then he eats it, and then he just makes a huge scene, and then everyone's like, oh, we told you, and then he goes to reach for water, and Marta's like, no, that'll just make it worse, and he drinks the water, and he's like, oh, no, and then CD's like, you can't tell him a damn thing. I'll tell you that.
At this point, the entire Walker, Texas Ranger fan page on Facebook is ROTFL.
Yeah. That, and I was like, oh no, CD, that was borderline wrong thing to say, but okay.
So we meet them. They're, she's doing her best. Marta's serving up some amazing Mexican food, and obviously people can't wait to get it. So her small business seems to be doing pretty well off the bat. But while we're watching the Texas Rangers sup on some fine south of the border fare, those scenes are juxtaposed with a chaotic scene.
It was a little jarring, wasn't it?
Yeah, for sure. This episode had some pretty epic transitions between scenes. Lots of zooms and whooshes. It's pretty jarring for sure. So these robbers are hitting up a I don't know what the store is, but it's called the Diamond Mart. So it's like
it's the Diamond Mart.
All right.
It's where you get your diamonds.
Yeah. It's kind of like a robber's dream, right? It's got one really fat security guard.
The establishing shot for it looked like a commercial office building, right?
Yeah, with a sign up front that says the Diamond Mart. So we know there's only one. These robbers mow down the security guard, knock out one of the tellers there, and basically just smash all the cases. And they seem to be having a great time of it. At one point, one of the guys says, "Shut up," or quote, "I'll turn you guys into dog food," end quote.
I wasn't sure what that meant.
It was actually worse than if they said something brutal to me, actually. It came off it was so weird.
If he was ad-libbing, kudos. That's a weird one.
It was pretty good. Yeah, they're like, you can't swear, but intimidate these guys. Go. I'll turn you into dog food.
Oh, yeah. So they're busy, going crazy. They're wearing these ridiculous long-haired wigs and sunglasses and smashing things and grabbing diamonds. Then one of the guy touches his ear, which obviously makes us think that he's got a radio in his ear, and he's like, "Okay, how are we doing?" And then it clips to this weird silhouetted face in a car that's like, "Let me update you, Mr. H. A minute 30 seconds elapsed. Police summoned by silent alarm. 30 seconds until approach."
Yeah, he pretty much, the guy, it was like a silhouette of a guy who was like apparently the ringleader, but they didn't want to reveal him, and he somehow knew how long it would take for the police to get there, and he was keeping time for the people stealing stuff from the Diamond Mart. It's weird because they flash back and forth between the meal and the robbery. So like all that stuff with the jalapeno is happening at the same time while they're robbing the Diamond Mart, and they're going back and forth between really having a good time, you know, eating Mexican food, hijinks, and brutal, I'll turn you into dog food robbery kind of thing, back and forth. Unbelievable. And then I think once they finally get away with the robbery and they leave, that's when we're introduced to Joe Lopez. And Bob, you want to introduce Joe Lopez to us?
I was so pumped when I saw him.
OMG.
So I don't know if we're like hitting a lot of episodes that just have cool guest stars by luck, or if there's just a lot, you know, a high percentage of cool cameos. But Danny Trejo is one of the main characters in this episode, and yeah, this is kind of early on in his career. He hadn't established himself as quite the badass, although his character did just get out of jail.
Yeah.
So there's that. But he doesn't look the same as, you know, he doesn't have the long hair, the beard, or anything.
Yeah, he's clean shaven.
Looks a little more reserved.
Yeah. I think we could say that his normally extremely rugged face is only slightly rugged. So
Right.
we might be able to I don't think we call him baby-faced. But
No.
it is, you know, when I first saw him, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, you think this is like, oh, you know, this is like 20 plus years ago? Because he still looks old. He doesn't look as rugged or badass, but he still looks old.
But it was awesome to see him. I was like, yes, this is great. He comes in the restaurant. This is pretty much butts up to the end of the scene with a jalapeno because Walker and crew are still there. So he enters into the Mexican restaurant and he approaches Marta, and we find out that he is Marta's husband, that she never divorced while he was in prison, and he just got off on parole.
We're actually informed that he got out of jail by a really weird filter flashback, a gavel coming down, and a judge somewhere saying, "Guilty, 10 to 15 years.
And that was her flashback too, right? Yeah. Once she sees him, like she goes back into this, you know, back in the courtroom or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Unbelievable. But there he is, and he's back, and he just wants to say, hey, I'm off parole, and, you know, I know you've never remarried, and for whatever your reasons, I just want you to know that I still love you, and I'll do anything I can to regain your trust because I don't want to go down that road again. I want to be redeemed in your eyes. And she kind of plays it halfway chill. Most people would be like, okay, well, let me think about it. But she was like, why don't you just put on an apron and go clean some dishes?
Yeah, put him to work immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and he was like, okay, yeah, I'll go do it. And meanwhile, we're introduced. Her son's name is Tomas.
Tomas, yeah.
Yeah, and he gets wind of this, and he is not happy because he's seen the heartbreak that Joe Lopez has done to his mother, and he doesn't want that to happen again.
Yeah, he definitely had that sort of reluctant teen, you know, you're not my dad's dead type of thing.
And he was a pretty bad actor. But
my God, I was just going to say, I feel like I say this a lot.
I know, but
he was the worst actor. So bad.
It was, and I don't know, it was probably partially the script and the direction or whatever, but still, it was just
cringeworthy.
Yeah.
At this point, you know, they have this whole sort of reunion thing, and Walker and everyone are looking on from their table. And Trevette's like, "Oh, who's that?" And Walker's like, "Well, that's Joe Lopez. I never knew him, but he just got out on parole, and he was a safecracker." And this is where they really establish the fact that Joe Lopez, he's a good guy with a heart of gold. They write in this fact that Joe Lopez was caught because his getaway car hit a tree after a bank robbery because he was trying to avoid some kids in the street. He might have a criminal backstory, but he's got a heart of gold.
Greedy. He might be greedy, but he doesn't want to kill kids. So
heart of gold.
Yeah.
Heart of gold,
Yeah.
for sure. So that's all good, and Marta offers Joe a spot. She says, "Well, maybe you could sleep in the kitchen or something like that." He's like, "No, I gotta go. I gotta live at the halfway house." Cut to the halfway house, and this is the point in the Walker episode where the dots are connected. This is where, oh, why is this old friend here right now? Oh wait, the old friend is about to be directly connected to the current crime wave that's going on.
Yeah.
So he goes into the halfway house, and this is where we realize that the guys that just robbed the Diamond Mart, they're all his roommates at the halfway house.
Man, what a class.
So the dots are connected, and this is where we learn that Walker has tried to spring a trap for the criminals.
Wade, the head of the halfway house, he comes in, and the guys are playing foosball, kind of talking about the heist, and reading a newspaper and being like, "Whoa, the newspaper says that X amount of dollars were stolen when we only got this. I think that Wade might be holding out on us." And then Wade, who's the head of the halfway house, he comes in and says, "All right, boys, here's your cut," and pays him up. And they kind of like confront him about it and say, "Hey, man, the newspaper said this much was stolen, but you only gave us this." And he's like, "Well, I don't know what to tell you, boys." And then they all kind of look around and they're like, "Let's go spend this money." And then they just kind of bust out the door and kind of are like, "I guess we're going to go have a good time because we still got a ton of money out of the deal."
Now, this all happens, and somehow Joe doesn't hear it. So I guess maybe my concern about them talking about this completely out in the open is moot.
Well, I mean, Joe was in the room the whole time looking at that picture of his family. So
Yeah, and did you notice there were 2 kids in that family?
Yeah, I did. I didn't think about that.
So the whole, when he keeps looking at that photo, it's like, he's got another kid. Okay. So I'm thinking this other kid's going to appear at some point in the episode. And I'll just, spoiler alert, no. There's no second kid.
That's why Tomas doesn't like him so much, because he remembers when his brother dies.
Are you making this up?
No. He's like, "You weren't there when Ernesto died."
Wow, they had one line to tie that all together. Do you think? Oh yeah, God, man, you really have to watch this show close. It's good.
I know. I'm ashamed.
This is why I take notes. This is why I take notes.
I actually take notes too, but apparently not enough.
Let's see. The next day, Marta opens for the first breakfast service, and of course, for some reason, once again, Walker is there before the actual restaurant opens and is having some coffee with her, and
That's
really
his
trying
morning
to
stop.
Yeah, he's trying to, assess the situation and see where she's at. We learn that she's still in love with Joe, and, he tells her to be careful, and then he goes and does a little bit of a morality check on Joe. And let's just say Joe passes flying colors.
Yeah, this is kind of like Walker matchmaker happening.
Although the best that Joe can say is, "I'll never willingly cause them any pain."
Yeah, I love that word, willingly, because it's like, I'm probably going to do it, but it will never be on purpose.
Right.
At least he's honest,
Yeah. The writing's a little strange there, but okay. Then this ridiculous character that is kind of a throwaway character, really. His name is Buck, and he's Joe's parole officer.
Yeah.
And he sort of plays somewhere between like this weird, unnecessarily aggressively friendly, wacky dude. I don't know.
He's like a swinger parole officer or something. You're like, "What do you want from me, man? I'm not quite sure. I'm getting the really weird vibes from you." And you're like a little too happy, but you're also really serious. I feel like you're also a shark, but you may also be...
I don't know. A blackjack dealer? I have no idea. I don't know what the guy
Used
is.
car salesman.
Right.
It was a used car salesman parole officer, but there was something a little like David Lynch off about him too. a Twin Peaksian kind of character.
Yeah, he was
happening with this guy?
Pretty weird. Yeah, so Joe, meets his parole officer or whatever, and then goes back to the halfway house, and this is where he gets to have his first interaction with Wade, who's the halfway house director or something.
And as Joe is getting off the bus outside of the halfway house, like everyone's just having a great time. The halfway house was really jamming.
Oh, for sure. And don't forget Joe helped an elderly woman get onto the bus. Once again, heart of gold.
Yeah, that's how you know this he's good. He's got a good heart.
Oh, yeah.
They bend over backwards to make sure, well, maybe not that far, but they bend over. They don't bend over at all. There's no bending over, but he is a good guy.
Yeah. And he would never willingly hurt that old lady.
Never.
Not willingly.
No.
Never.
But he accidentally.
But if he has to.
Yeah, he accidentally broke her neck as he helped her sit down, but he didn't intend.
Yeah. Or if his actions set forth some crazy chain of events that somehow got her killed.
Yeah.
That might happen, but
it would never be intentional.
Yes.
So back to this halfway house, okay? And the place is buzzing. Like the guys who all supposedly have ankle monitors and are supposed to be on their best behavior so that they can get off parole and start living a normal life are out there like playing cards and kind of just shooting the breeze outside as if it's just like a frat house or something.
Yeah. It's the foosball table. It brings all the kids in.
Yeah, I guess so. So he's walking up the steps, Joe is. Presumably this is his first night at the halfway house, so he probably doesn't know very much about anybody, and he's headed to his room, not really trying to talk to anybody, and he walks by Wade, who's the head of the halfway house. He goes, "Welcome home, Joe. Hard day at the old lady's grease trap." And Joe just kind of looks over his shoulder and is like, "Okay," and he just keeps walking, which is the absolute correct response for that. And he heads to his room to go look at that picture of his family and know why he's going through all this stuff.
And then Wade just comes right in and he's like, "Hey man, sorry about that comment earlier about your old lady.
Her grease trap."
Right. It's like, why did you say it in the first place if you're going to immediately regret it? But okay. And he's like, "Hey man, if there's anything I can do to make your time here easier." And then he's like, "Maybe you want to take a shower." It's like, where is this going? And then he takes off Joe's ankle bracelet or whatever is his monitoring thing. And at this point, I'm like, wait, those aren't waterproof?
Yeah, I would think they'd be able to.
He hasn't taken a shower since he's put it on.
Right. Joe's like, "Well, what do you want from me?" And Wade's like, "Sometime in the future, you and I might talk about something you can do for me, but right now, I'm on your side."
He's like, "Play it straight with me." He called him out. He said, "Let me know right now. What's up? Just be a straight shooter with me." And he says, "Later." And he kind of like sneaks out,
leaving Joe to continue gazing at this photo. But when he gazes at the photo, that shot has him still with the ankle bracelet on. So continuity problems here, team.
Oh, I missed that because he did take it off and then it was back on.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he put it back on because he was a good guy.
Yeah, maybe he didn't want to take a shower. Meanwhile, at my favorite bar so far in the Walker Texas Ranger verse here, the Velvet E.
Yep.
Which we learn later is short for the Velvet Elvis. A fine drinking establishment where I guess you can procure ladies.
And I looked this up. Apparently there is a Velvet Elvis in Dallas. But it looks like it's not the same location that this was. So maybe it moved or just coincidentally there's a Velvet Elvis in Dallas. But
road trip.
Yeah.
So what's going down inside the Velvet Elvis?
Those two yahoos were going after some ladies.
Which yahoos?
I don't know their names.
They don't have. I mean, their names are irrelevant.
Yeah, these names are irrelevant. These are the two of the guys holding up the Diamond Mart. And they were entertaining some young ladies, you know.
The young ladies were like rubbing, like taking their hands and like rubbing like their chest as the boyfriends talked to each other. And the two guys were like talking to each other about being pissed off about being shortchanged on the money. The girls were just like had like these fake smiles on and were like, "Oh, this is fun, ha ha ha." And then they kept like rubbing the guy's chest. The guys just kept like ignoring the girls. They were more interested in each other, I think.
I can't speak to their emotions because I've never really held up a Diamond Mart and then gone out with my spoils after the fact. So,
Right.
Yeah,
you know, I don't know where their headspace is at. You know.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing. But one of the girls is like, "Hey, let's get some more drinks from us over here," which, you know, I would think would be a good thing, right? And then the guy's like, "Shut up, or I'll hit ya."
Got dark real quick.
And then at which point, I think the bartender was like, "Oh, man, there's some guys over here talking about the bank heist. I better call the Texas Rangers." Is that what happens?
Exactly what happens, yeah. Like the bartender, who honestly, the bartender could easily play like an extra that they knock out in a fight in some other episode. The guy's totally jacked.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he calls the Texas Rangers, and Trevette picks up the call, and he's like, "Hey, Walker, man, you're trapped. It worked. 2 of the gang members are at the Velvet Elvis. We got to go down and pick them up." So that's exactly what they attempt to do. Walker and Trevette show up. The bartender gestures over to one of the guys, and in perhaps some of the sloppiest Texas Ranger work I've seen, they prematurely shout out Texas Rangers, even though they knew there were 2 guys, but there was only one guy there. So the other guy comes out of the bathroom and starts shooting at them, and they're actually able to escape, and an epic car chase ensues.
Did you guys catch the make and model of the bad guy's car?
Oh, it's a Ford Bronco, right?
Oh, yeah.
OJ.
It is not a Dodge, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Oh, hell no. No,
Yeah.
it's a competing American car brand, almost always.
This car chase was insane, was it not?
Oh, fantastic. So, you know, the bad guys get some cover fire, and Walker and Trevette have to dive out of the way. And while they're diving out of the way, we're left to assume that they're getting in a car and squealing away, because we hear those sound effects, and then they zoom in on these ladies' faces that are like, "Oh, what's happening?"
Yeah.
And Walker and Trevette, of course, they scramble out. The chase ensues. They are a law enforcement vehicle, i.e. their gray Dodge Ram with flashing lights, pursuing a blue Ford Bronco. And, you know...
It's pretty agile. Very agile for a Bronco, but...
for sure.
Unbelievable.
So the fat guy with the beard and the long curly hair is driving. And let's just say, like, even though when you see the car driving through traffic, it looks like it's weaving back and forth, every time you get a shot of him behind the wheel, he's just so relaxed.
He's cool
having
as
a
a
great
cucumber.
time. Yeah. He's just like, "Oh, yeah, I'm just going to, I'll put my signal on, just going to get over here." And the strung out guy who's like got the gun, he's got his arm out the window with the handgun, just like flailing it away, sometimes shooting. Walker and Trevette pursuing him through traffic. They kept showing these shots of them going over a bridge, which makes you wonder like how long that bridge is. Finally they're weaving through traffic. The guy mustn't have put a signal on, and he's clipped by a Buick, and they're kind of spun out on a bridge. And I guess the car stalls out because, it's a Ford, not a Dodge. And he's not able to stop it. And Walker and Trevette sit by and watch as an enormous 18-wheeler bears down on their car. You get the shot of a strung-out guy going, "No!"
And there was a long wait for this. There was enough time for me to be like, yes,
really
yes.
long, really
There's
long.
enough time for them to get out of the car and get out of the
really
way.
long. Now, I will say, earlier on in the chase, they cut off a car, and that car actually hits another car and flies over that car. Now, I thought this is a great opportunity for
an exploding car.
That car to blow up.
Yeah.
And then it didn't blow up, and I was like, what the hell is happening? Right. But as soon as I saw that 18-wheeler bearing down on their Bronco, I said, well, that Bronco's probably 10 years old. They probably got it for $1,000. They've loaded that thing up with explosives. That thing's going to blow up like nobody's business. Sure does.
Yeah, and you
Boom.
wait for it. You see the Mack truck coming towards the Bronco so it can T-bone the Bronco, and you're just like, wait, this is happening. Yes! And it comes, and it pulls the Bronco to pieces around the side of the Mack truck, and the explosion is gigantic.
Oh, it's epic.
Insane.
It, like, drags the remains of the Bronco down the road.
Yeah. And I gotta say, when I saw them drive past, because they actually threaded the needle and had the Bronco drive past the Mack truck on the bridge, I was like, oh no, something's happening here with that.
This truck has something to do with this.
Epic conclusion to this car chase. At which point, we're led to assume, like, well, at the end of most car chases, Walker's shaking some guy by the collar, like, hey, man, give me the info. But in this case, it's nothing left.
Yeah, which leads me to just a throwaway scene, but Walker and Trevette are walking out of the coroner's office because presumably they were going to go question the dead corpses from this burning car wreck. But it was just like the same old hallway that they used for all the other ranger office stuff with a sign pasted on the glass, coroner's office.
Yeah, it was like a piece of paper printed out in like a dot matrix printer.
Yeah, they're like, coroner's office.
Next episode, it'll be a courtroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, for those of us who didn't put two and two together, they outlined it quite clearly when Trevette says, why, that was gruesome. We'll never be able to ID those bodies. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, back at Casa Lopez, we see Joe rekindling his relationship with Marta. And, they're reminiscing about old times. They go in for the kiss, and just as they're making contact, Tomas, their son, comes around the corner. He's like, what are you doing?
Yep,
Why are
he's
you
pissed.
so dumb, Ma? Joe's all like, don't talk to your mother like that. She doesn't say anything, and he's like, what are you going to do?
And then he holds like both his hands up by his head. He wants to like throw down, but in the weirdest way.
Yeah.
And leaves it there way too long. Enough time where you're like able to go back and forth between the two actors and be like, what?
Now that kid would be a fool to fight Danny Trejo. Are you kidding me? Plus, even the character just got out of jail for 10 years, so...
Yeah.
I wouldn't mess with him. I wouldn't. That's just me, though.
Yeah, but Danny, he knows that the way back into his wife's heart is not beating up his son, so he walks away.
Yeah, pretty much. And then
That's a good start.
Right. And then as he walks away, she's like, see how much restraint he had not to beat your ass? That's what makes him a real man.
Is that what she said?
Something like that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like what?
Like before, he would have just destroyed you.
I know.
Yeah.
But he's better now.
Remember when he used to hit you?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that's why I hate him.
Yeah, remember what he did to Ernesto?
Oh, man. Well, we all tried to forget about Ernesto. Bob and I
Clearly.
better than you.
I never even knew about him, apparently. This is the time where the parole officer's back again, right?
Oh, yeah. So he
You
goes.
notice this? And
yeah,
he like
goes back.
grabbed.
Yeah.
Do you notice he grabbed Tomas like in a weird way?
Yeah, it's super weird.
had
He
to
like grabs
rewind
him
that.
by
I'm
the
like, what is-
head.
Yeah, he like grabbed him by the head. I was like, "What's going on here?" It's like
My first
I
name's
didn't-
Buck and my middle name's Diddle.
Yeah, it was super, super weird. I guess that's like their way of letting us know that he's a bad dude.
Yeah.
Hashtag spoiler alert.
Yeah,
Right.
which they shouldn't have done that at all, and it would have been for the best. But anyway,
This is when he goes back to the halfway house.
Yeah, he finally meets the other guys in the crew and everything.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
when Wade has the conversation with him. And Wade's all like, word is, you're a pretty good safe cracker. Except instead of safe cracker, they call him a box man, which seemed really lame.
It's
Yeah.
an industry term, you know.
exactly. I mean, you know, yeah. When you're on the inside, you know this kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And they're like, they're sort of beating around the bush, and they're like, well, this guy that we're working for, the boss man, he's got a really special job for you. He wants you to open a safe.
Yeah. You'll never guess what it is.
Yeah. Oh my God.
We need you for something. It's what you do. And at this point, Danny Trejo, Joe Lopez, he's like, looks like you guys just got yourself a box man. And we're left to think, is he off the rails? What is he going to do?
And I'm like, they've already went way above and beyond to say this guy's a good guy, So I'm like, there's no way he's going to break bad.
Yeah, and I was a little disappointed, too.
Yeah, because you wanted to see Danny Trejo just at least
he would have been an amazing bad guy.
Yeah.
So much better, but we won't go there.
Well, I've got news for you, though, Bob. I was looking at his Wikipedia page, and it looks like he might be in another episode of Walker.
Excellent.
Yes.
As a different character.
Can we, cheat the wheel and go to that one next?
Well, if any sort of doubt had crept into our mind, that doubt was immediately forgotten when we see this next scene where Tomas is beating the hell out of some punching bags.
Oh
shirtless.
My God, this is the most ridiculous scene I've ever seen.
And, presumably he's at some weird gym somewhere.
He's in the gym, shirtless, hitting a punching bag. I can't remember what music is happening under this. What do you remember? Is it like some really crappy rock music or something?
That's probably something really emotional.
Okay. He's on the left side of the screen. He's naturally hairless. Won't get into that. Just leave that there. And he's beating the hell out of this punching bag, which is on the right side of the screen. They fade in a picture of his dad, who he's pissed off at. And it's as if he's kicking the shit out of his dad via punching the punching bag. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
He keeps repeating this phrase, and every time he says the word, he's punching the bag. It's really weird.
I mean, it really drove home what he was going through.
Sure.
I just wish the scene was longer.
I bet you do. I mean, Tomas is ripped. He must be on the Chuck Norris Bowflex plan.
Whatever. I mean, he's definitely not eating the Mexican food he's been serving.
That's also true. He's got a total gym. I mean, that's really what it is.
Yeah.
So, in keeping with that, making sure that he's making his monthly payments for his total gym, Walker shows up, and he has this nice heart-to-heart with shirtless Tomas.
Complete with Bible verse.
Yep. And he basically says to him, your dad's doing the best he can. Let me quote the Bible here to give you an idea of that. And which seems odd and out of character for both of them, quite frankly.
It was weird when Walker walked into the gym, actually. I was like, Walker, you get around.
Yeah,
what are you doing here?
Well, remember last episode when he was just going out to eat to get some meatloaf at a local diner and he defended one of his students from a gang.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So he's this is touched by Walker. That's what this is.
Yeah.
And he's just being a part of these people's lives for a week. Their lives are changed forever, and we'll never see them again. In this case, he literally touches Tomas. He puts his arm around sweaty Tomas's naked upper torso.
Hairless, naturally hairless.
Yeah, it's just an odd scene for sure.
So what happens next is we kind of flash to the restaurant the next day. Obviously, we know that Tomas is pissed, and he's probably, when you're working a job and your head somewhere else, you make mistakes. And he's serving dinner to like a nerdy white guy and I guess his daughter. I would hope it's his daughter, because if it's his date, she's way out of his league and like 30 years younger.
And the guy was like a really belligerent John Lithgow with a beer belly.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so Tomas is like thinking about his dad or whatever, presumably, and his head was somewhere else, and he accidentally spills all the food on this guy. And the guy just lets into Tomas. Well, back in the kitchen, Joe hears this and comes out and kind of diffuses the situation with kind of like jokes that you might learn in prison kind of thing. Making light of a situation by almost making fun of the person that you're trying to bring a little levity to. And he finally made the guy smile. And he also offered to pay for his clothes and his meal. So that also helped.
And this is where Tomas realizes like, oh yeah, my dad's really a good guy. But even if he hadn't realized that, he looked back at his mom, Marta, and she winks at him to let us know, okay, he realizes this now. So after diffusing this nasty patron, we realize that Joe's actually feeding the information to the Texas Rangers.
About the heist.
Right. He agreed to do this job, but then he went directly to the Rangers, and he's doing it for his family, which we see Alex in 2 scenes in this, and this is the second scene where we see her. She doesn't even say anything, I don't think. They just ask her why he's doing it. He's like, I want to get back with my family, and she looks like she's about to tear up.
Yeah, she gets all worked up over that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so pretty much he goes to Walker and says, hey, guys, they approached me for this, and they're the same people that have been robbing all the diamond banks. They want me to be their box man. That means safecracker, just in case you don't know Walker.
I think we should probably call it a boxman.
Boxman?
That sounds
Yeah,
clever.
boxman.
And he said, I said yes because they weren't going to take no for an answer. I mean, obviously, if you said no, they'd just kill you, right? So that's why he said yes. So he didn't know when the heist was going to go down, but he pretty much told Walker and Trevette that once I know, I'll give you that information. That leaves us right after he kind of patches things up with Tomas by fixing that angry customer. He heads back to the halfway house, and all the guys who did the previous heist, the ones that are still alive, are talking out front. And Joe's like, hey, guys, when's this heist going to go down? You can kind of tell he's fishing for information for Walker. And they're like, oh, don't worry. We're going to have a meeting soon, and you'll get all the information then. Just chill out. And then Joe kind of goes inside, and the guys are like, what an eager beaver. So he goes inside, and then they call this meeting, and Wade, the head of the halfway house, calls all the bad guys who are in on this heist into his office. And earlier, Joe was kind of like, who's the leader of all this stuff? And like, oh, nobody knows. Kind of tried to make a big deal about the guy with the stopwatch at the beginning of the episode. Nobody knows who it was. He was like shadowed out. The 2 goons sitting on the porch kind of like, reminiscing, had no idea who it was apparently and wouldn't tell Joe. And so they go into this meeting, and Wade's like, okay, so we're going to do this heist. Here's the plan. Do you think you're ready to do it? And Joe, obviously he's stalling because he wants to get this information to Walker. And he says, oh, no, man, I can't do this until I get tools and I do some researching on the safe. Just as he's trying to get his way out of it, what happens, Evan?
Boom. Door opens up. Mm-hmm. Who comes in? But the parole officer, Buck.
He's a bad guy the whole time.
And he's like,
OMG.
He's like, surprised?
Well, you did act like a used car salesman, so I'm not surprised that you're evil.
Well, that's all part of his shtick. He's like, I bet you didn't think I'd be a bad guy because I was playing such a nice guy. Such a nerd. It's like I guess there's a reason why he was acting so bizarre earlier on, but I mean, I think he was sending out a lot of red flags before this.
Yeah, it was kind of make up your mind, buddy. Stick to one thing.
And so he's like, there's no time for you to get tools. We got all the tools you need, man. You can read those plans on the way there. We're going right now. It's Sunday morning, and they only got 3 security guards, and no one else is there. So we're going right now.
So he's called right into the heist, and Joe has no time to let Walker and Trevette know what's going on.
So back at HQ,
yeah.
Walker's like, I should have heard from Joe by now.
Yeah, so something happens to the camera here. I'm not even sure how they did this effect.
It's a classic effect where the physical camera gets closer and closer to the subject, but the camera itself zooms out. So the effect is a steady shot on the character in front, and the background zooms in.
Okay, yeah, the background was moving in and out as if like someone had glaucoma or something like that.
If you guys haven't watched this episode, another example of this is in Lord of the Rings when the hobbits are saying like, we should get off the road. And then it like does that weird thing where it zooms in but also zooms out at the same time. It's really wacky.
What's that?
What?
It's a small indie film.
Oh, yeah. Is that
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that like the Snyder cut?
It's the Snyder cut, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They use that effect in a lot of things.
Okay. Well, anyway, so they do that kind of weird effect with Walker sitting on the corner of his desk, and it kind of like his whole background around him like morphs in and out as if you're in like some trippy dream, and you're like, what is happening? And then it clips to Trevette, and what does he say, Bob?
Can feel that Cherokee kicking in. And then he made some comment that was pretty funny. He goes, well, I've learned that usually when you have these ideas and I make fun of them, that I'm always wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go with it this time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which tells me that Trevet's just really given up at this point in the series. He's just like, whatever. I'm not even going to try. I'm going to eat this hot pepper. And everyone's going to laugh at me. And like, I'm just a joke.
Well, it's also feeding the fire of the hunches before punches.
Right.
Yeah, doesn't he even say something about hunches?
Exactly. Exactly. He says hunches. He calls, I'm assuming, the jail or whatever and says, hey, I need you to tell me where Joe's ankle monitor is. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's at the halfway house.
But, what we didn't hear them say was, just so you know, those things are only attached by Velcro, and there's a 95% chance that it's on the parolee, but a 5% chance that it has been removed.
Yeah, especially if you're at that particular halfway house.
Yes, that percentage is multiplied by 50% with that halfway house. It's a real problematic one.
Yeah, so pretty much he knows that, well, Joe's, I guess, at the halfway house, but I've got a weird feeling. My turkey's kicking in. I've got a hunch. Let's go check it out. So they go to the halfway house, and it's kind of a quick scene. Like, for some reason, all the ankle bracelets are in Joe's room on the bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all just laying there. They all took them off at the same time and put them in the same place.
Yeah, they're like not even trying to hide it.
And Wade, who's the head of the halfway house, kind of the guy who's the ringleader of all this stuff for Buck, he's like in Joe's room with all the ankle monitors on Joe's bed, which... So many questions, but not enough time here. And Walker and Trevet kind of bust in, and they're like, hey, look, where are all your parolees? What are all these ankle monitors? We've got you, dead to rights. If you don't talk to us now and tell us what's happening, you're going away for a long time. So, presumably, he squeals and tells Walker and Trevet where they're going.
It's like a shakedown, but I would say it's like 50% of a shakedown.
Yeah, it was more talk. And Trevet did most of the talking there.
He may have done like 75% of the talking, yeah.
Walker was more of the muscle.
90% of the muscle, yeah.
I don't know. I maybe not 90.
Because we can't get bogged down in the numbers.
No, not at all. No. So we clip back to the job, and these criminals are cruising around again in their gray Econoline van. They pull up on the job, they get out of the car, and oh my God, the parole officer, he's got Tomas as his insurance
little
policy.
Insurance policy, right?
Oh yeah.
This whole episode, I was expecting that there would be the just kind of cliche dip in the episode where Joe lets his son and his wife down because they find out that he's back into crime again, and then at the end they find out he was undercover working for Walker. Like, that's how I thought this episode was going, but they just blew over that kind of typical hump. and
which is kind of good.
It was. It was actually better because I was not expecting that. I was actually dreading that other part, and they skipped right past it, and they're just like, you know what? We'll just use his son as leverage because we know he has a heart of gold, and if we have his son there too, we can make him go through with the job.
Certainly works. The
75% of the time.
Well, at least, yeah. So the two thugs that make up 50% of the crew take out 100% of the 3 security guards, and they just like flat out murder them.
There's like dead cops all over the place here, at least 3 of them, and I'm just imagining Joe, who he just gets out of jail and he's trying to get back in good graces with his son and his wife. And his son has his mouth duct taped, and he's bound, and he's being walked over these dead bodies.
I know, it's awful.
With him, I was like, oh no, Joe. Unbelievable. And keeping with the weirdness with Buck goes to one of the bad guys there, He's like, wow, 3 guys down, huh? And the thug's like I said, rent-a-pigs ain't diddly.
Rent-a-pigs.
Rent-a-pigs ain't
like
diddly.
I said, rent-a-pigs ain't diddly.
I do wonder if that's the same guy who was talking about turning people into dog food earlier. He could have been.
He had 2 great lines.
So, yeah, in keeping with the show kind of blazing through certain things that could be a bit more dramatic, they show up at the safe and they tell him he's got 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes to open it. Or else
very specifically, right? You have this amount of time.
Right, or else his son dies, right? And he's like, okay, let me work on it. He opens it in like 10 seconds.
Yeah. I love when he just like drills a big hole in it, and then that somehow allows him to listen and do the classic, listen to the safe thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it takes him maybe 20 seconds, and then.
But there's one pause where like he cuts the hole into the safe, right? And he does that. And again, he's on a timetable here. He's got 3 minutes to do it. He drills a hole in there and gets ready to start listening. And then he locks eye contact with his son. And I was expecting him to communicate, hey, I don't want to be doing this. But that's not what he did. It was just kind of like a...
Sup?
Yeah, there are so many scenes in this episode where you think that they're going one way and then they just abandon it.
Yeah.
As if it never happened.
And it might have happened. They just didn't have enough time to edit it in.
Yeah, that's probably part of it.
So, yeah, he gets the goods out. And again, I'm like thinking, okay, well, once they get the money... They're just going to kill him, right?
Well, that's what I would assume.
He's supposed to get the share. He's supposed to get a share of it.
He's not. If they take your kid, right? They're not going to give you the kid back and the share. They're just going to kill you.
Well, why didn't he kill the other guys then?
Because they had enough time to prove their allegiance.
They're established in the biz.
Joe, they know he's got a heart of gold. And it's to their credit that they know that he's in with Walker. These bad guys are smart. And they know that, our other two trusted guys, their Bronco got devastated by a Mack truck incident. So we have to move fast.
R.I.P. Bronco.
We have to use this guy even though he's not vetted.
They get everything out of the safe. It's tons of cash. And then they're like, all right, we're out of here. So I guess if they were going to kill him, they would have just killed him then.
That's what I would
have
thought.
But either way, but everyone leaves and... They get back down to the parking garage, and in the meantime, Walker's cutting his answers out of Wade, so they're waiting down in the parking garage for him.
Yeah, and the first shot is Trevette hiding behind like one of the van, waiting for them, and you're like, oh, okay, here's the final fight of the episode, which is what you wait for in every Walker episode, is that final just all-out brawl. And Trevette's like creeping behind the van as they're all trying to escape. They kick the film into slow motion before anything even happens.
So weird. Yeah.
Because usually they do it
everything goes to slow. Yeah.
Once a punch has been thrown in, then you slow it down. But they literally throw it into slow motion almost haphazardly in this whole section, right?
Yeah, and it's pretty consistently slow-mo, and all the sound effects are definitely not. So like a slow-mo punch, but you get the regular punch sound, and it was just weird. I wasn't a fan.
Yeah, and
it was over the top and awesome in that way, but
it was. Yeah.
I mean, let me say that this episode is really not putting it's not putting exceptional police work up front, and this is just another sloppy bust, the second of 2 sloppy busts in this episode, where basically Trevette is hiding behind a car, but then he's seen by the guy, and the guy turns his gun at Trevette, and then Walker kicks the gun out of his hand, and then they take that guy out. And that all happens before the other guys even come out. So then the second guy comes out, they take him out sloppily, and they end up killing him because, collateral damage. And the third guy comes out, he's holding Tomas. So now they've got a hostage situation. Yeah. It seems like pretty sloppy police work. Great TV, sloppy police work.
Right,
Come on now.
Right. And Buck is holding Tomas, right?
Yeah, the parole officer guy, yeah.
Yeah, the ringleader, parole officer, weirdo dude has Tomas with a gun. And he says, if you move on me, I'm going to shoot him. And it's Walker and Trevette on one side and Buck holding Tomas with a gun to his head on the other side. And then Joe walks down into this, and he's right in the middle. And what happens?
Walker tells him to get out of the way so he can get a clean shot.
Right. Yeah. Yep. But he doesn't. I don't know why he doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, even if he did, the
guy could
you're
have
not
shot
going
him.
to shoot a guy that has a person at gunpoint.
Are you kidding?
That's something Walker would do.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I forgot where I was.
By the time this podcast goes through all 200 episodes, I'm sure that's happened 5 times.
Oh, at least, yeah.
Yeah. So he's like, hey, Joe, get out of the way so we can get a clean shot. Get out of the way. And Tomas kicks Buck right in the grundle.
Yeah.
And
right in the taint.
Yeah, right in the taint.
It's like a weird kick, too, because he's facing away from him. So it's like a backwards kick.
It's like a horse kick. Yeah,
right.
Like a mule. But it's also just the heel goes right up in there, right in the grundle.
He leaves it right in line. And then he breaks free, and that leaves him running towards Trevette and Walker with Joe still in the middle, and Buck has time to pull his gun and try to shoot at them, and Joe jumps in the way of the bullet and takes the bullet to save his son. Walker and Trevette are able to shoot Buck and take him down. At which
Heart
point,
of gold.
Yeah, Heart of Gold, hashtag Heart of Gold. At which point I paused the episode and I said, Sarah, what do you think? Is he going to live? And
yeah, that's a good point. I initially thought he was not going to live, and then I immediately, I guess it happened so quick that they show him in the ambulance, and I'm like, okay, yeah, he's fine.
Yeah, that's
like if he's not going to die on the spot, like with some dramatic speech to his son.
If I hadn't paused it, it was kind of instantaneous. Like there was no drama there. But I had to pause it, and I said he's going to live, definitely, and we both agreed because they did so much work in this episode, threading the needle that he was a great guy and getting him back with his family. If he didn't get back with his family at the end of the episode, there's no point in this episode.
Yeah. The 4 words that made me realize he was going to live was when Walker said, Trevette, call an ambulance. Because normally, Bob's absolutely right. Like, if the guy was going to die, he'd die right there with great dramatic fanfare, and they wouldn't even call an ambulance or anything.
Yeah, yeah. And
call the meat wagon.
So this next scene is pretty amazing, right? Like, they have Tomas in the ambulance talking to a comatose Danny Trejo.
He's kind of fading in and out, right?
And what's the kid saying?
Walker told me everything you did. I love you. Don't die. You can't die. I love you.
Yeah, because at this point, I mean, his kid didn't know that Joe was actually like a good guy and he was like setting them up. He just thought he was a criminal.
And I'm not saying this scene had to happen, but did it have to happen like in the ambulance?
Absolutely. Are you kidding?
And then the part where he's like closes his eyes, and then the kid gets all worked up that he thinks he's dead, and then he kind of opens his eyes like, dumbass, I'm not dead.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just messing with you. Just messing with you.
Oh, man. So how do we end this thing?
Final scene, instead of Casa Lopez, Family Lopez. So we realize at this point, Joe's okay. He's all right.
Fine. He's
Joe's
doing
fine.
great.
Yeah.
And that was pretty quick. I was expecting a hospital scene because that's a hallmark of Walker, but
the purple hospital room.
Yeah, like I said, there were a few things I was like, "Oh, it's going here," and yeah, they just blew right by all the boring parts, which normally they would just embrace with open arms.
But there is one final thing that happens, right? Walker has a letter for Joe. It's from the governor. Joe's been pardoned.
No, sir.
Oh, my gosh.
So he already served 10 years in jail for robbery.
I know, right?
I guess you're pardoned now, so you don't have
good
parole
does that do
anymore?
Him? Yeah.
Probation.
Right.
Maybe if it clears it off his record, he's not a felon anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, it was
It
kind of
still
big.
seemed like a little throw-in bullshit at the end that really didn't need to be there, but
Yeah.
That's icing on the cake.
a little too much so.
It was kind of like they're like, "Oh, and by the way, you won a gold at the Olympics."
Right.
You know what I mean? It was kind of arbitrary because he had already kind of won. He got his family back and everything. He didn't need this extra icing, but it had to show that Walker did something in this episode.
For sure.
Right.
For sure. Well, that about sums up this episode. We'd like to give a shout out to our friend and collaborator, Adam Lauritsen, who's been drawing the amazing Walkerstrations on our social medias. Be sure to check out his other art on Instagram at @ImaginationRunAmok. When we come back, it'll be time for us to each rate Circle of Life on a scale of 0 to 10 boots to the face, resulting in our patented Roundhouse Roulette episode ranking, complete results of which are available on our website, roundhouseroulette.com. Don't you dare go away. Welcome back. I'm pretty lukewarm on this episode, quite frankly.
Really?
I saw Danny Trejo. I was like, oh man, this guy's going to be awesome. but I do think it was kind of before he hit his stride as like an action star or like a villain or anything like that. They didn't use him really at all, even though he's a good actor. At least the one with Gary Busey, like he was doing freaking roundhouse kicks. Danny Trejo did nothing except jump in front of a bullet.
He cleaned a few dishes too.
He did that.
And drilled a hole in a safe.
Yep, and he made fun of a patron at a restaurant, which apparently worked. I don't know. That would never work today if you made jokes at people, but whatever.
It's the double down. I know someone who's doing it quite often.
Okay, yeah. And Walker and Trevette do almost nothing in this episode. There's kind of a fight, but not really. No roundhouse kicks. The only saving grace of this episode is the car chase in the middle that ends with the most epic explosion. And the fact that the guy screams no before and then it cuts
10 seconds before.
Right. And then it cuts to like 5 seconds before the truck hits it. Oh, it's so good. Other than that, like, this episode, pretty much a flop. I'm calling this one... I'm calling it a 5.
Okay.
Going there.
Man, I'm going to 4, actually, on this one. Because, yeah, there was no action going on in this episode. Wasted Danny Trejo. I don't know what. There's nothing else to say, really. You said it all, Bob.
I'm going to go 4, too. The biggest thing is the waste of Danny Trejo. It's like, I was so pumped to see him in this episode. I was like, but even when he came in, I kind of knew he was like coming in as like a good, you knew right away he wasn't going to be a bad guy. So I'm like,
I will say, you know, one of the best scenes too was in the Velvet E. They had this song playing that was like, your sweetness pours like honey on me. It was like, it was so cheesy. It was awesome.
It's true. We didn't cover the music in this episode. There are a couple songs in this one that are probably originals for the episode.
Most definitely.
And they're like total garbage.
Who has all these recordings?
I
mean, if they really are like just
made
for the show, did they pay someone to make these songs? If that's the case, then these exist somewhere. And they probably didn't sell them. But we still owe it to ourselves and everyone else to get these recordings.
It was pre-digital recordings, so they may have just thrown those tapes out.
We got to get these and preserve them. I mean, at least for if an alien race discovers the leftovers of our civilization and they got that song, your sweetness pours like honey over me, they would totally understand the human race.
That sums us up pretty well. If we look in the credits, there's like a music supervisor or something. Like, who's the person on the staff that would be responsible for that? We need to find that person, hope that they're still alive, track them down.
And say, send us your DAT tapes.
Yeah, there's probably some weird format that no one has access to the machines that operate them anymore. But yeah. Hopefully they're cassette tapes. That'd be sick.
Oh, yeah.
These are like the equivalent of the soundtrack to Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Well, that gives this episode a Roundhouse rating of 4.666 boots to the face. Excellent. And just for our friend Mike out there, the credits ended in this episode at 12 minutes and 1 second. Or as our friend Buck, the parole officer, would say, police are coming in 12 minutes and 1 second. All right, well, I think we can all agree that even without the aid of his trusty machete, Danny Trejo was still the best actor in this episode. But let us know what you think on social media or by emailing us at roundhouseroulette@gmail.com. When we come back, we'll be spinning the Roundhouse Roulette wheel to select next week's episode. And we're back. Bob, you ready to spin that wheel?
Oh, Angel.
Another season 6.
Yeah. Trevette agrees to help an ex-girlfriend find her father, unaware she's actually a professional killer who intends to murder them both.
This sounds awesome.
Yeah.
That does sound pretty awesome.
I like that it's a Trevette episode.
Yeah.
I'm
looking forward to that. Yeah.
Now, if there's one thing we've learned in Trevette episodes, it usually focuses on him trying to woo a woman. So this sounds par for the course. Well, we hope you'll join us next week when we share our reactions to Season 6, Episode 21, Angel. Share your opinions with us on Facebook and Instagram at Roundhouse Roulette and on Twitter at Roundhouse Pod. And rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your fine podcasts. Until next week, may the eyes of the Ranger
be upon you.
When you're in Texas, look behind you. Oh, 'cause that's where the Ranger's gonna be.